You won't believe how many stars from Roseanne left us under heartbreaking circumstances. Back in the 80s and 90s, Roseanne wasn't just a sitcom. It was the voice of the American working-class family. Raw, real, and wickedly funny, it gave us characters we felt like we knew. But behind the laughter and the TV glow, many of the cast faced personal demons, private heartbreaks, and ultimately, untimely goodbyes. Their on-screen magic made millions smile. Off-screen, their stories were often far from a happy ending. Let's take a look back, through the highs, lows, and unforgettable legacies. Let's start with Quinn. Remember Mark Healy, the tough guy with a heart of gold? Glenn played Becky's boyfriend-turned-husband, stealing scenes with that mix of brooding charm and rebellion. But while Mark found love and a spot in the Connor household, Glenn was fighting a darker battle behind the scenes. After moving from Dublin to LA, he shot to fame fast. Commercials, music videos, then Roseanne. But that fame came at a price. He had to bury his Irish accent for 7 years and struggled to separate himself from the character. When he finally got to use his real voice in Angel, it felt like a new chapter, until drugs took over. Heroin addiction consumed him. Friends said he'd vanish from set, show up confused, and drift in and out of recovery. On December 3, 2002, he was found dead of an overdose in North Hollywood. He was just 32. When Roseanne returned years later, they didn't recast Mark. That silence? It was their tribute. Then there was Shelley Winters, unforgettable as Nana Mary. That rebellious sparkle in her eye? That was all Shelley. She wasn't just a TV grandma, she was a Hollywood titan. 2 Oscars, a Golden Globe, a life filled with iconic roles, and just as many heartbreaks. Her love life was a roller coaster. 4 marriages, legendary affairs, and a strained relationship with her daughter that took years to heal. But Shelley wasn't just an actress, she was a firebrand. She marched for civil rights, championed women's voices, and stayed outspoken till the very end. In 2006, at 85, she passed away quietly in a Beverly Hills rehab center. Her final wish, a bedside wedding to her longtime partner, iconic to the end. Martin Mull played Leon, Roseanne's uptight but oddly lovable boss. Off-screen, he was an artist, literally. A painter who wrestled with loneliness and lung cancer in his later years. Brilliant but tough to work with, he clashed with directors and often preferred solitude over stardom. His relationship with singer Wendy Haas lasted, but not without turbulence. Martin passed in June 2024 at 80, leaving behind a legacy built not just on TV, but on canvases, his true escape from the world. And then there was Fred Willard, always a scene stealer as Leon's partner Scott. That lovable, goofy energy masked a quieter pain. A long marriage to his wife Mary weathered rumors, distance, and substance struggles. After Mary died in 2018, Fred was never the same. A scandal in 2012 nearly ended his career, and though he bounced back publicly, behind the scenes he was battling illness and isolation. He died in 2020 at 86. Gentle to the end, but forever changed. Ned Beatty, Dan's dad Ed, had one of the most recognizable faces in film, but the trauma from his breakout role in Deliverance haunted him for decades. He drank to cope, kept a distance from Hollywood's spotlight, and stumbled through 4 marriages. Though his career stayed steady, the emotional wounds ran deep. He passed in 2021, age 83, leaving behind a complicated legacy, and 8 children, not all of whom stayed close. Wings Hauser, who played the edgy and intense Ty Tilden, lived a life just as wild off-screen. Homeless with a baby at one point, his early years were filled with desperation, music failures, and dangerous roles that mirrored his own chaos. He battled addiction, ruined relationships, and became estranged from his son Cole, who you might recognize from Yellowstone. They eventually reconciled, giving Wings one final spark of peace before he died in 2025, at 77. Then there's Debbie Reynolds, who brought Roseanne's mother-in-law Audrey to life. From Singin' in the Rain to decades of stage and screen fame, Debbie was Hollywood royalty. But her life was packed with heartbreak. The Eddie Fisher-Elizabeth Taylor scandal? That was her marriage falling apart publicly. And losing her daughter, Carrie Fisher, one day before her own death in 2016? Devastating. Mother and daughter were buried side by side. Proof that some bonds never break. Red Buttons played Jake, the kind of character who felt like your chatty neighbor, funny, sweet, but also a bit lost. Red had a long, dramatic run in comedy and showbiz, but battled gambling debts, scandals, and personal isolation. By the time he passed in 2006 at 87, many in the industry had already forgotten him, but fans hadn't. John Randolph as Roseanne's father, Al, brought a cold, rough presence to the screen, and he channeled his own pain into the role. Blacklisted during the McCarthy era, emotionally scarred, and often difficult to work with, Randolph fought to keep his dignity and voice intact. Even into his 80s, he never stopped acting. He passed in 2004 at 88. Quiet, intense, and unforgettable. Phil Leeds, the offbeat Grandmama Lily, left his mark with just one Halloween episode. Blacklisted like Randolph, he spent years in obscurity and battled personal guilt over a deadly car accident in the 70s. But he clawed back into the spotlight in roles like Ghost and always delivered something magical. He died in 1998 at 82. Stan Freberg, the ad man turned actor, was another behind-the-scenes legend. Witty, sharp, but crushed by the very industry he poked fun at. After being blackballed in the 70s, his personal life unraveled. He passed away in 2015 at 88, still fighting to make people laugh, even when his own world got too quiet. Kathleen Freeman, always the loud, cranky one you couldn't help but love, lived a quiet life off-screen. Never married, no kids. Possibly hiding a relationship in a time when love couldn't always be lived out loud. She battled depression and lung cancer and left this world just 5 days after bowing out of a Tony-nominated show. That's how dedicated she was, to the stage, to the craft, to being there. Here's the thing. Roseanne wasn't just a sitcom. It was a time capsule, a mirror, a messy, funny, flawed slice of America. And the people who brought it to life, no matter how brief their appearance, left behind stories that deserve to be remembered. So which character touched you the most? Was it Glenn's tragic charm, Debbie's resilience, Martin's quiet brilliance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this walk down memory lane moved you, even just a little, don't forget to hit like, share with a fellow fan, and subscribe for more stories from the heart of Hollywood.